So, you're probably wondering what's going on. Kirk and Spock, the granddaddies of modern fandom as we know it, the ship to give our foremothers brain rot, the pairing to literally coin the term slash for shipping, is canon after how many years? I guarantee you there are some Trekkies watching this like, fools, they've been canon! Allow me to shed some light on the subject, but before I do so, I want to include a disclaimer that while I do enjoy Star Trek and consider myself part of the fandom, I'm not a hardcore Trekkie, nor am I the most knowledgeable. There's still a lot of media I need to catch up on, and so if you are a big Trekkie and want to extrapolate or expand upon anything in this video, please feel free to do so in the comments. I welcome it. On November 18th of this year, a Star Trek short film called 765874 Unification premiered on the 30th anniversary of the film Star Trek Generations. It was released by the Roddenberry Archive, the William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy estates, the actors that play Kirk and Spock respectively, and Otoy, the visual effects tech company that's been involved in shows such as American Gods and Westworld. William Shatner and Susan Bay Nimoy, the widow of the late Leonard Nimoy, served as executive producers on this film, and it was licensed by CBS Studios. The film is about 8 minutes and depicts Captain Kirk traveling through either time and space or some sort of afterlife to bid a heartfelt farewell to Mr. Spock on the latter's deathbed. For those who don't know, Kirk and Spock were on their own when they met their respective ends. Kirk's death was rather unfortunate, and a lot of Trekkies are still upset and heartbroken about it to this day. He falls off a bridge. Yeah. Meanwhile, Spock's death was off-screen in the Kelvin timeline, which is the universe where the Chris Pine Star Trek movies take place, and that was due to Leonard Nimoy's passing. It's not explicitly clear how this is happening, it's not really meant to be. There are a couple theories as to how this canonically could work. 1, it's the afterlife. Or 2, Kirk was brought back to life with some help so he could reunite with Spock before he passed. And given the timey-wimey spacey that so often occurs in sci-fi, these two theories can kind of blend together. Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell, using his godlike powers to monitor the galaxy and keep an eye on his friends, brought back Kirk at his moment of passing into a transitional dimension where meaningful people from both Kirk and Spock's lives were present, either as real entities or emotional echoes from Kirk's psyche. The Kelvin TNG era time traveler, Yor, met Kirk there and brought him into the Kelvin timeline to be by Spock's side at his deathbed. The passage from transitional realm into the Kelvin universe offered Kirk a glimpse at his history. Kirk was there with Spock when the latter died the first time in Star Trek II, and then Kirk died alone in Generations, but perhaps Gary might be able to work a little magic to make Spock's death a little less lonely as a parting gift to his old friend. Yor is from the future of the Kelvin universe, not the Prime universe, so when he meets Kirk, Yor is transporting Kirk from the Prime universe to the Kelvin universe, where Kirk ends up in the final moments of the short. In the most dumbed-down way I can interpret it, Gary Mitchell used his space magic across time and dimensions to allow his captain and his captain's boyfriend to have one last moment together. This comment sums it up really nicely. Like a lot of sci-fi, it's meant to make you contemplate what might be beyond our current existence. We aren't meant to understand the logistics of unification, only to enjoy the ride. Kirk and Spock's portrayals in the film were achieved by blending live action and computer generation, like how Luke Skywalker was portrayed in The Mandalorian. From the props to the characters that make an appearance in this film, there are a lot of Easter eggs. What does 765874 mean? Well, in May of 2022, Otoy published the first of its short films called 765874, which is the serial number of Yeoman J.M. Colt, who was sent into an alternate future in the comic series Star Trek Early Voyages. Ever since, all of the Otoy short films have used that number sequence in their titles. Now, you might be thinking, alright, yay, Kirk and Spock got their final goodbye, how touching, good for them, but it doesn't make Spirk canon though. Does it? Well, it's kind of up for interpretation. A Schrodinger's Spirk, if you will, being sent across time and space or the afterlife to say goodbye to someone whose love for you and your love for them transcends any form of conventional box you can place it in, who's canonically referred to as your soulmate, and the trek to see each other again is likened to Orpheus and Eurydice, tragic lovers from Greek mythology. It's not a stretch to view that as romantic. It could just as well be friendship or brotherhood, or it could be all three, or something beyond those three, I don't know. Throughout the original show, it was constantly pointed out how close Kirk and Spock were, how their bond seemed to transcend any normal friendship or romance for that matter. In the novelization of Star Trek the Motion Picture, Spock infamously refers to Kirk as his Tahyla, an ambiguous term that could mean friend, brother, or lover. God, imagine if this term was introduced to fandoms today, the shipping discourse would never end. They always find each other across universes. Kirk and Spock love each other, and that love is beautiful. That's what Unification is trying to convey. Again, some fans are gonna be like, it's been canon, dumbasses! And others are always gonna see Kirk and Spock as just bros. It's all kind of open-ended and hand-wavy, and I think it's left like that for a reason. For shippers like me, it's like, you're seeing this, right? Like, it can't be any more obvious. While it's not one of my biggest ships ever, I have so much respect and appreciation for Kirk/Spock, Spirk. That's gonna be a clip right there. I respect But yeah, at the end of the day, Schrodinger Spirk. And as for why this film was made in the first place, fans have agreed upon 3 reasons: closure, fan service, and tech demo purposes. Kirk and Spock weren't able to have a proper goodbye in the original Star Trek. There wasn't like a last scene of them together, and so this short film gives them that. The short film encapsulates, or should I say unifies, the Star Trek lore. From The Cage to Where No Man Has Gone Before, the original series, Star Trek the Motion Picture, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek The Search for Spock, Star Trek The Voyage Home, Star Trek Generations, Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and several Star Trek comic stories and novels. William Shatner has also expressed a lot of regret over not getting to say goodbye to Leonard Nimoy at the end of his life, and so this could also be closure for him. And some folks are just like, oh, it's AI-generated nostalgia porn to show off Otoi's newest software. That's all. Regardless as to why this short film exists, needless to say, the fan reaction to it has been a lot. This is an unlisted video, mind you, and it's sitting at over 3 million views. The 2024 unification we thought we were getting, the Irish unification of 2024, and the unification we actually got. I'm so mad they never kissed. Their souls literally intertwined on the astral plane. I thought this was Spirk. Does that mean that Javik are Spirk coded? Oh, we have an addendum. Javik is just Spirk with a splash of Judas Jesus at it. Jelly, buddy, as someone who knows next to nothing about Star Trek, please tell me what's happening. Okay, so I almost said Okay, so Spock/Kirk is like the oldest ship ever, right? They invented /fiction. These guys pioneered fandom as we know it today. Mind you, there are several older male ships, but if we get too far back, we're just gonna go into Gilgamesh and Enkidu territory. In the last movies they made with those original characters, they were separated into like alternate universes, okay? These guys were never gonna see each other again, and it was very sad and tragic, and the fans were kind of sad about it, but it is what it is. Then they made a short film, right? Like 8 minutes long of Kirk reuniting with Spock on Spock's deathbed. And Kirk holds his hand and they look off into the sunset together. They got to be reunited, they got to be together in the end, they got the romantic ending, and I swear to God, I'm losing it. If it helps, imagine if in 50 years' time, they released an 8-minute video of old man Dean Winchester going to the empty and saving Castiel, and then they sat on the hood of the Impala holding hands and watching the sunset. That's what it's like. You see how insane that is? Do you get it? Bro had to use Destiel. Could you briefly explain? Oh God. Speaking of Destiel, I love you. Spirk became canon after 57 years. You're crying from the unification of Kirk and Spock? The eternal love and bond across time and space got to me, alright? The Spirk unification of 2024. Me just trying to make it through the day. Spirk is canon! I want y'all to know that I first found out the news about Star Trek Unification when I was in Disney World visiting a childhood friend who just had a baby. So while I'm just sitting there in It's a Small World with this 4-month-old on my lap trying to stay sane, I'm just thinking Spirk is canon, Spirk is canon, Spirk is canon. What the is happening in the universe in 2024? Oh my God. As da 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 was in the background. This sounds so unhinged. If my friend's baby is watching this like years from now, hi kid, sorry I was thinking about Star Trek yaoi when I was taking care of you in Florida. Coley Does Motherhood failed. If gay people have sex on screen, it's fetishization, but if they don't, it's queerbaiting. So to create the optimal midpoint, you must write a scene so erotically baffling that it is unclear whether sex is happening or not, like a black and blue versus white and gold dress of scenes. And the f***ing Ponfar, no! Me mentally, these characters have a relationship that cannot be defined by any one thing and reaches throughout the narrative and is so woven into their characters that trying to force it under one label would be inaccurate and doing it a disservice. Me out loud. IDK, man, they're f***ing gay. 2024 has been the year of yaoi. God, it really has. Old man yaoi too for a lot of these. Got screen caps from Unification here. Hey, so what the actual f***? We were separated. He couldn't touch me. This is more than Spock and Kirk going canon. It's two characters who were irrevocably influential to sci-fi, to fandom, to media at large, getting a beautiful and poetic ending. This is layered in Star Trek canon, but more than that, it's Kirk and Spock reuniting, against all the odds in the universe, ours and theirs. Kirk was dead, Spock was dead in another dimension. They died alone and without each other. This was their unbelievably tragic and canon ending, until today. Now their ending is this. Reunification, connection, crossing time, space, and reality itself to be together again. Because that's how important they are to one another. Because that is how important they are to Star Trek itself. Because that is how important James Tiberius Kirk and... I'm sorry, Spock, I can't say your name, are to media at large, Star Trek fans and beyond. This is monumental to a degree that I truly do not know if people can understand, and I will never get over it. Like, maybe Unification didn't make Spirk canon in that we didn't see them make out with tongue or whatever, but what it did make canon and what makes it so incredibly important to me is that Kirk and Spock's ending is no longer so goddamn tragic. Before, Jim died in his 60s and Spock spent the next 100+ years missing him, before dying alone. Now, even with all the tragedy and heartbreak and the lifetime spent apart, they were together in the end. They were together and happy and everything was beautiful. Oh, we got fan art! Full circle moment when you find out about Spirk going semi-canon through the Destiel meme the way our fanfic foremothers intended. What?! Holy sh**, both Destiel and Spirk became canon in the month of November. What? I just can't get over that Spock didn't die alone. So many sad postings about how Spock had to spend his final years in a not quite right universe, watching younger versions of himself and his friends live on while he can't be a part of it. Can't ever see his friends again. Kirk is alive and yet totally unreachable. But against all odds, there's Jim, his Jim, through time and space just to find him again, to be at each other's side again. His wayward sun finally dawned. Together, forever, I hope someday with someone you'll find out what that is. And they did! Together! Mother. I think William Shatner will be going back and forth between so anti-Spirk to the point of actual homophobia and so pro-Spirk it almost seems like he was in love with Nimoy until the day he dies, and maybe even longer. Two lovers have reincarnated throughout history, destined to find each other and fall in love all over again. There's also this third guy that reincarnates alongside them. We don't really know what he does. Bones. On September 15th, 1967, Spock and Kirk gave birth to a beautiful baby girl known as /fanfiction. Could someone please edit Unification so that Kirk gets teleported to Five Guys finally? There's so many chipsets of Unification. Y'all are killing me with all these gifs. Sorry, I'm just liking everything in the Spirk tag right now. Take my hand. Please tell me that someone else noticed the f***ing Vulcan wedding bell instrument on the wall in the what? How much more implied can this be before people get it? Yeah, I'm going through Ponfar and you have to roll around gaily in the sand with me. You have to do it with your shirt cut open. Okay, just let him die! This is killing me. He is part of me. The man is the center of all things. When Jim and Spock are soulmates who do soulmate things like defy death and cross universes just to be together when they need each other. Why am I gasping? I already knew that. this. Look, man, I just think it's crazy that as a piece of world building, the Star Trek writers go, yeah, Vulcans are touch telepaths, so they are very sensitive to any touch. Even hand-holding is considered very intimate. And then have Kirk and Spock constantly touching each other, which could be nothing. This simple feeling, case in point. So what you're telling me is that we've been making out this entire time? Correct. This is so beautiful. So how do you two know each other? Funny story, actually. We have met in every lifetime. I mean, come on. Come on. Powerful homoeroticism. I really enjoyed it. Cannot stop thinking about all the fandom foremothers and fathers who would have been so happy to see this. You could never have imagined the technology involved to create it 54 years after the show was canceled. The ones who were around to watch generations, but not to see this final moment, and how they would have smiled and cried and drawn their art and clutched onto each other in excitement, just like we are. Spirk already held hands like this in the 1979 motion picture. Unification adds nothing new to their dynamic. It's not about the physical romance, it's about acknowledging they are soulmates spending eternity together. Gene Roddenberry already confirmed they are T'Hyla in the novelization. You won't accept Spirk canon unless they suck face and raw dog on camera. They were already canon to me for the last 30 years. Don't quote the deep magic to me, which I was there when it was written. Is Kirk/Spock canon? After watching Unification, I think it is. It's as canon as it's ever been. Regardless of the degree of how canon Spirk actually is, I'm still going to enjoy it to my heart's content. But since when has a ship being canon actually mattered in fandom, right? What do you think about this newest revelation for Kirk/Spock? Do you see them as romantically intertwined soulmates across universes? Do you see them as crewmates who just respect each other a lot? How do you feel about the Unification short film? Do you have a favorite Kirk and Spock moment from any Star Trek media? Throw all your thoughts and Trekkie brain rot in the comments. I'd love to read it. As always, if you'd like to see more fandom and fan culture-esque videos from yours truly, then feel free to subscribe. If you'd like to see my fanfiction recommendation list with over 1,000 fics on there, as well as watch exclusive videos not on my channel, then check out my Patreon or YouTube memberships. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!